So, ladies and gentlemen, now we are switching into English because I would like to introduce our special guest. Just let me say a few words about Zvi Reich. Zvi, can you hear us? Can you see us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening to everyone.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let me, I have already announced a little bit your work in the first session because I informed everyone that I heard your presentation at the Korea conference last year, and I found it so inspiring that we decided to invite you to this session and to this seminar. Right now you can only see me, but then we can actually use the camera and just to show you the room, so then you will see the people sitting around the table. Can we do this right now?
Yeah.
when I'm introducing? Okay, so then you will not feel alone.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So let me say just a few words about Zvi Reich, and please correct me if I'm wrong or if you would like to add anything. So Zvi Reich is a professor of communication at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and he was also a journalist. So as many of us here in this room, he's got the experience in the field indeed, right? He is the author of many papers and many books, and one of them, which I wanted to mention, is the sourcing the news, but also there are several other book chapters that are extremely important for our field. And let me just tell you that we received at least three, I'm aware of three, awards granted by the International Communication Association for the top faculty paper. And all those papers were really extremely important for the field because we can all learn from them. Because let me tell you, that's my personal note, if you allow me, that once we are reading your papers, we can actually see the findings, which are extremely interesting, but you also provide a real insight into the methodology. And the seminar is exactly about that, right? We are reporting today what we have done, and we are also talking about the future studies that we are just planning right now, and then we just exchange our comments and suggestions on them, and that's exactly what we can find in your papers, and we really appreciate that. So I invited you to tell us more about those 4 method project, and I really I would like to say thank you, like a big thank you. I really appreciated that you agreed to say, as you call it, both the joy and the agony of this kind of initiative. So so welcome to this seminar. We are, let's say, regretting a lot that you couldn't come in person, but I know that you visited Poznań and our faculty at least twice in the past. Am I right?
Yes.
I think so. Okay, so you can actually imagine being here, and yeah, I just don't want to waste more time. So if we can start, that would be perfect. So if you'd like to say hello to everyone and then start your presentation, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnieszka. Thank you very much for inviting me. For me, being with you here tonight is not only an academic thing, but also very emotional, since, 5 hours drive from the Adam Mickiewicz University. Used to live my family until 86 years ago in a small shtetl near Berlin, near Lublin, sorry. And they were deported by the Nazis on October 1939. And for me, being invited to something that involves Polish scholars is a real excitement, because of this legacy. So thank you very much, Agnieszka, for inviting me. I think I was never desperate for a new methodology like that evening on September 2019, when I found myself sitting at the study of the #1 expert on expertise. Yeah, there is something like this. There's a field of study, expertise, and Harry Collins is maybe the #1 expert on the sociology of expertise. So I found myself sitting in his study, which overlooks the fantastic Cardiff Bay, and asking for his advice. Why was I so desperate on that evening? Because I've just won a nice grant of the Israeli Science Foundation to study one of the most challenging aspects that can be studied in journalism, and this is knowledge and expertise. What do journalists know and what is their expertise? And one thing that I knew is that I don't have a good methodology. Although I've won the grant, which is highly competitive, and I presented there a method that basically was, panels of experts that ranking news items. And I knew that this is going to be a disaster because they are going to patronize the journalists, to dismiss their knowledge, and I will be able to learn very little. And in order to help Harry Collins, which is really a top scholar, he is a member of the Royal Academy of Sciences in England, in order to help him help me, I sent him in advance a large table that displayed all the methodologies that were used until then in all the studies of expertise. And when I mean study of expertise, all types of experts, including physicians and scientists and athletes, everything. So there were in the table 31 methodologies that were used so far. And I asked Harry, please help. What methodology should I use in order to study the journalists? The plan was to study journalists from three big beats in Israel: politics, economics, and military affairs, which is a big thing in Israel. And the answer that I got from Harry was probably one of the most possible disappointing answers that one can expect. He said, I don't know. All I know is my method, which really didn't suit me. So I had to go back home from Cardiff very disappointed and very worried. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What about my students that are waiting, new PhD students are waiting for good methodologies? What about my grant that I just won? And what about my reputation? I already had some reputation as a methodological innovator after developing these reconstruction interviews that were by then used all over the world by PhD students, mainly in Europe, but not only. And, I was really satisfied, but I felt that this is also obliging, that I cannot use a banal methodology. I need to come up with something different, with something new, with something that I believe would be effective in studying the expertise of journalists. Now, and these are, it's almost, by then it was more than 10 years that I'm studying expertise in general in order to understand how to study journalistic expertise. First of all, you have to know what is expertise and how to study it. And when you are using or developing a methodology, you need to be very transparent about your assumption. What do you assume is the nature of the terrain that you are trying to study? And I would say that in this field, we have 9 major challenges that have to shape. According to the challenges, you have to develop the methodology. So I thought that there are 5 main challenges to study every types of expertise. If you study combat pilots or brain surgeons or athletes or chess players, you have these 5 challenges of studying every occupation or every discipline. And you have also 4 specific challenges to study knowledge and expertise in journalism. By the way, I'm talking about knowledge and expertise, but I think that what follows is applicable also to study other aspects, and I will address that in the Q&A. So first of all, what is challenging in studying expertise? If you look at the left-hand side, do you see my slides okay?
Yes, we can see this. Yes.
Okay. So as you can see with the hands that are trying to hold water, expertise is a knowledge of very abstract and evasive. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. Another H2O related metaphor is the iceberg. expertise is like an iceberg. Most of it, and I would say the most important part of expertise, are beneath the surface, are unseen. It's very hard to see them. They are considered tacit knowledge. It's a very important term in expertise studies. It is kind of knowledge that you may know, but you have no access to it and you cannot describe it in words. And the classic example is riding bicycle. You cannot write a manual that guides me safely how to ride a bicycle. I mean, because it doesn't depend on words, it's tacit. Next is the comfort zone effect. If you want to study anything about expertise, you must push the experts outside their domain, outside the comfort zone. So only when they are less comfortable, there are more chances that they will give you some tacit knowledge. Next is the real-life context, and which represent a very important approach inside expertise studies called naturalistic decision-making. It's a subsection of cognitive psychology that believes in studying real experts and in real-life context. So they object, and I joined their objection. They object the efforts to study expertise in laboratory conditions, because what they say is that eventually you end up studying not experts, rather, the usual suspects, which is second-year psychology students. This is what available in these laboratories. And so these are artificial experts under artificial conditions. And the naturalistic decision-making approach believes that we should study real experts in real-life context. And last, for the challenges of every occupation is the developing phenomena. You must bear in mind that your expertise is a process, and it's dynamic, and basically it puts you in a situation that you are using a microscope trying to chase a moving target, which is highly challenging. I'll move now to the challenges that are specific and add up, specific to journalism. First of all, in journalism, products are collaborative. If you see a news item, there are many people involved in this item. Sometimes, the journalist, maybe probably editors, sources, expert sources, sometimes PR. Next is AI. Too many factors are involved, and it's a collaborative project. It's very hard to learn where does the expertise of the expert sources end up and where does the expertise of the journalist begins. So the collaborative challenge is a big one. Second challenge is that you are, as all of you know, because all of you tried to talk to journalists, these are professional interviewers, and as professional interviewers, they know exactly what you are looking for. They are guessing. They are giving you exactly what you want, and not what you need. So it's hard to hear reflection, original thought. You will get mostly the regular speeches. Next is the talking versus doing. This is a very interesting one. You can divide all the professions, all the occupations, all the types of expertise into those who are focused on doing and those whose expertise is only talking. Who is doing? Carpenters, tailors, brain surgeons, pilots, they are busy doing something. Whereas journalists, librarians, information sciences people, market analysts, and so forth, they are experts in talking. Now, then you are missing now a big portion of expertise if you are talking only about experts who can only talk the talk without walking the walk, because you don't have the products. And you can judge expertise according to products, like, I have a chair, I have a surgery that is done, I have a uniform or a costume that I can see, the fine tailoring. But it's not only that you lack the product that is an important entity in assessing its tangible entity that you can use in order to assess the expertise. You don't have an entire universe of sensomotoric skills that help you, build the dexterity to do the operation, or help you, develop your senses so you can smell and taste the wine and as a connoisseur. So this, when you talk about experts in talking, this is another kind of expertise that impoverishes a lot of the things that are said in the literature about other experts. And last, journalism, because it is so based on intuition, so many of the decisions are based off or are intuition based, and what is based on intuition is inaccessible cognitively for to hear the reasoning or to hear reflection about, because it's intuitive, it's based on snap judgment, and journalists do not have elaborate explanations why did they do that. So these are the challenges. So I told you about that evening in September 2019, and now fast forward 6 months, I would say 6 sleepless months. We started seeing some methodological ideas that were new. I'm not the guy who is, illustrated here, but as him, I had more hair on my head on this period, because it was really a lot of tension and a lot of challenge to develop these methods. And basically what you see here is a summary of the 4 methods. Don't worry, it looks like a lot of text, but I will walk you through this slide step by step. These are 4 methodologies that today are used by my 4 PhD students to study different aspects of knowledge and expertise in journalism. Basically, we are focusing on the 3 beats that I told you: politics, economics, and military affairs. And we also added recently technology and science. So these are five news beats that we are studying the expertise in. The first methodology is news sorting, which looks like this. Look, wait. No, I don't see. Okay, which looks like this, the news sorting. We come to the journalist with a pack of cards, say 25 cards or 23 cards. Each card represents a recent story that this reporter published. And we first of all make sure that they remembered each of these cards, each of the stories. Otherwise, we give them the item to refresh their memory. And then we ask them to sort, to rank the stories in 5 lines according to their complexity. On the top, the most complex stories, and at the bottom, the most simple stories. What do I mean by more complex? Well, they do it twice. First of all, according to the journalistic complexity, how complex was it to obtain the information or to present the information? And the second round is the subject matter complexity. How much knowledge in economics you need in order to cover these economy stories. If something is not clear, please jump with questions, because you must understand exactly what I'm showing here. So this is the news sorting method that is intended to study the existing expertise. What is the expertise that they have now, that they really have? And, after sorting, we interrogate them. What are the commonalities of the stories at the bottom line? What were the challenges? How did you overcome them? And so on. And I will show you some of the characteristics of the methodology that I think they have. The second methodology doesn't deal with the existing expertise, only with the desired expertise. What would we expect economic journalists to know? And how do you know? Well, we collect a panel of, let's say, 100 experts on economics. Some of them are journalists, some of them are economists, some of them are seniors in the Treasury, some of them are seniors in the National Bank, professors of economics from the academia, and we ask them one question. Suppose that there was a school for economic reporters and commentators, how would the curriculum look like? And they are discussing and offering items of knowledge, and then they are voting on their ranking. All of this is done by correspondence because the anonymity is very important in this method, so no one knows who are the other participants, and so you don't have the ego games like, I think or you think, you don't know who are the other. You just give your opinion, what are the items of knowledge the journalist in a particular field should know according to the journalist and the experts in this field. So this is the second column, the Delphi panels. Then you have the NLP, natural language processing, which is a computerized algorithm-based analysis. We did it already for technology reporters, so I will describe this study. Basically, what we did was scrapping a corpus of 24,000 stories that were published by 38 journalists. But please note, these stories were published by these journalists throughout their entire careers, which sometimes were more than 20 years of reporting technology. And what we did is trying to search algorithmically the emergence of certain indicators of expertise in their stories, in the linguistics of the stories. So this is an algorithm-based methodology that searches, traces the emergence of indicators of expertise as they are manifested in the linguistics of the story. It's a very sophisticated method. I will describe it also in a more detail in a minute. And last, the fourth column, you see the micro diaries and interviews. These are methodologies. This is a methodology that we are using to study new reporters. And new reporters, I mean reporters who just got a new news beat. So the editor told them, you are our new police reporters, legal reporter, economic reporter, what have you. And we are, quickly interviewing them, doing an introductory interview to see their background and intentions, how they are going to learn. And then we are using micro diaries that are based on WhatsApp questionnaire. We send them every 2 weeks. We send them one question. Tell us something about rotating questions, like, tell us about a recent success, failure, insight, interesting incident, interesting source, or whatever they learned during the last 2 weeks. And we do some complementary interviews every 6 months, following them this way for 2 years in order to learn about their learning processes. So the former slide was, in the former slide, I presented the methodologies. Now in this slide, I'm summarizing the materials, the data that you can get via each of these methodology, and then the challenges of each method. Do you understand, first of all, the first slide? Do you have any questions about this?
You got any questions? No, everyone seems to be okay.
Okay. Oh, I'm surprised. You are good. You are fantastic students, let me say. So I will move now to the outcomes, to the data that you get from each of these methodologies and the challenges. I don't want to sell you only the attractive data. You have to be aware what are the challenges for each of the methodologies. The news sorting method. What you get is the item ranking. As you saw, you have in 5 rows, the rankings of the reporters. You have the rankings themselves. Then you have the reasoning behind the rankings. And then you can do a typology of the challenges that they mentioned, what made some stories more challenging than the other. And you have also the methods and practices that journalists use in order to overcome these challenges. It's a very rich database. And finally, you have the items themselves that you can use regular content analysis or content analysis that try to connect the challenges and findings in the content. Challenges are how to recruit the interviews to sit with you for 75 minutes of interview. You have to sample the publication, to prepare the cards. It's a little cumbersome, but it can be done also via Zoom. We did we developed ways to do it online. Delphi panels give you the components and the structures of the desired knowledge. So what do they expect journalists to learn in this imaginary school? You have the items themselves. You have the priorities, which topics are more important than others. And you have also the levels of agreement and disagreement between participants. For example, if you want to compare what were the recommendations of the experts compared to the recommendations of the journalists. The challenges are how to recruit the panelists, how to maintain their collaboration, and how to minimize dropouts. Because in Delphi method, you have like 3 or 4 and sometimes even 5 rounds of questionnaires. In the first one, you are contributing the items of knowledge, then you are ranking them, then you are searching for consensus, and you have dropout between the stages. Sometimes it can take more than a year, and you have a lot of dropout. In the NLP method, it yields, you see the evolution of indicators of expertise across the careers of the journalist. And you can map the early adopters of these indicators, the late adopters, and also the non-adopters. Sometimes you see journalists that even after 15 years do not develop these indicators. The main challenge is how to discern between signals and noises. These algorithm-based methodologies, automated methodologies are producing a lot of noise, and you have to pay attention to the more consistent finding using indexes that helps you find the more consistent finding that are beyond any occasional noise. And also you have to develop dictionaries. So for example, we studied technology reporters in Israel. We had to develop specific dictionaries for technology reporting that the terms inside the dictionaries are expected to show the expected indicators. So you have to prepare these dictionaries, which is a burden. Last, the micro diaries, they give you nice snapshots of the evolution of reporters' socialization. You can see sometimes changing attitude to knowledge, to learning. And the challenge is how to recruit participants and minimize the dropouts. And you must have a lot of emotional intelligence. I want to say one more word about emotional intelligence. You are all experienced in probably in interviewing journalists, and you know how difficult it is sometimes to get the attention of a journalist for 1 full hour. So just imagine, what does Tal Mishali, my PhD student, doing when she's following them for 2 entire years? It's amazing. She has so much emotional intelligence, so she managed to turn herself into the fairy of new reporters, and it shows. We see that on the findings. I would like to say one more word about the advantages of the news sorting methodology, which I think it's a major method that I'm using, or we are using to study the existing expertise. Basically, I want you to pay attention to 2 things. One is the basic situation in which the card sorting is putting the participants, and the empirical effects of this situation. Let's start with the basic situation. journalists find themselves in real life conditions. So they are talking about stories and particular stories. Each story had its constraints, its context, its time limits, its word limits. Sometimes you had only partial information. So these are really real life conditions that are embedded in each story. It also fits the nature of journalism, which is incident-based. Basically, the main thing the journalists do is covering stories, and their entire experience and expertise and proficiency can be seen in these throughout these items. Now, think about the situation. The journalists are sitting, they see 25, 20, 24 cards that represent the recent work. So they are situated physically and symbolically in a very rare position, a very meta position, I would say, symbolically, observing their recent work from a bird's eye view. So, and this is immediately can be seen in the empirical effect of this method, because they are outside their comfort zone. They cannot use the regular speeches. Now they have to explain what are the commonalities of the stories in this line or that line, and they cannot give you the speeches. They can elicit their tacit knowledge. This situation encourages them to reflect on the stories, and you can really feel the wheels turning inside their heads. How can I tell? Because they are because they are doing corrections. No, this story shouldn't be on the second level. No, it should go on the first level, and this one. No, you know what? On the second thought, I will move this story, and then as they say, what are the commonalities of the stories in this line? Well, I got myself into a trouble. I didn't expect that I will have to explain it. Well, let me see. So you see the wheels turning in the hand, and the answers are much more hesitant and much more reflective and much more trustworthy, I think, than other methodologies. And they totally lose the advantage of being professional interviewers. I would like to share with you two surprising findings that are based on these methods. First of all, this knowledge metrics, the metrics of expertise, that we found in the study on the expected knowledge. So this metrics is based on a study of 30 journalists and experts on military affairs. Some of them were generals. One of them was the former chief of staff, which is the #1 soldier in the Israeli army. And other experts, also academic experts on military affairs, and journalists and commentators. A lot of years of experience and expertise in the field. And we asked them if there was a school for it was before the war, by the way, if there was a school for military reporters and commentators, how should the curriculum look like? And I want to share with you our surprise. Why were we so surprised? Because we believed that they are going to cover only the rubric on the left-hand side, the core knowledge. So we expected a long, boring list of items that these journalists are expected to know, like, infantry, Air Force, Navy, cyber, so on. And that's it. This is what we expected. And we got a list of basically 100 topics that these journalists should know. But the interesting and the surprising thing was that this was only the beginning, because they expected journalists to do more with that knowledge. So they expected them to take when they encounter a new item, to take the suitable core knowledge, to put it, and I'm going right words, to put it in the right contextual circle, whether this is a historical context, a geopolitical context and so on, to use one level of analysis, which is strategic, tactical, or operational, to involve 4 types of knowledge that you see below. I don't have time to get into every type of them, but I would say only about the right-hand one, the situational knowledge. Situational knowledge is knowledge that you cannot get from others, not from sources, not from reading, not from talking to other people. You must be there. You must be in the training area, in the war zone. You must see it in your eyes. Otherwise, you don't know what is a night combat, or you don't know what does it mean to land a chopper. What does it mean to land a helicopter on a ship in the middle of a stormy sea? This is only a situational knowledge. Only if you have been there and if you've seen it, you know what you are talking about. So these are involving 4 types of knowledge. And as you see in the arrows, outside arrows, the vertical and the horizontal one, they expect the journalist always to balance between the depth of the knowledge and the breadth of the knowledge. In some areas, you can go broad. In some areas, you must go deep, and you must keep the balance. So the source of our surprise in this regarding this slide was that we couldn't even imagine such a sophisticated matrix of expected knowledge, which is so dynamic, which gives journalists such a broad agency, such a broad jurisdiction, such a broad authorship when they come to implement their expertise. And also, sometimes, generals, army generals are so, dry and people, we didn't expect them to give journalists such a broad leeway. I think it's a very intelligent product that came out from what they said. Another surprise that I want to share with you was recently published in Journalism Journal, and it was from the study on the how do new reporters learn expertise in the first 2 years on the job, and it was really surprising. First of all, already during the first 100 days on the beat, they reported a very extreme feeling of stress, which was really weird. I haven't came across such a phenomenon in all my career in journalism and not even as a researcher. It looks very weird. The level of stress was very high. But then after, let's say, a couple of months, it disappeared. During the stress period, we heard some of them say, listen, I'm going to study, I'm a new legal reporter, I'm going to start legal studies, a legal degree. This is very serious, I need to know. But after a couple of months, the same guy says, no, I don't really need really academic studies. I can learn from one story to another. So basically is what we learned, and this was the surprise, it was a shift from managing knowledge to managing ignorance. They had to relinquish their hopes to know what they are reporting, to understand in advance, at least before publication, to understand what is their story about. Sometimes they find themselves as new reporters that they don't know exactly what was the item about even after they reported it, because they relied on the expertise of the source, because they still do not have expertise. So this gives us a lesson about the relationship, the sophisticated relationship between managing knowledge, managing your own knowledge, and managing your ignorance, which is more challenging for new reporters, and trust me, not only for new reporters. I must say a word on, do I have enough time for 2 more slides?
Yes, 2 more slides will be perfect.
Okay. So first of all, why study knowledge and expertise? I can tell you from my experience that after 5 years of studying practices of journalism, of journalists, I realized that the most important questions are questions of knowledge. Do journalists know what they are talking about? But then after 5 more years of studying knowledge, I realized that the most important questions on knowledge are actually questions on expertise. Because only after a few years on the job, when journalists start knowing something about their beat, only then you can start expecting them to know something real. So it's basically what journalists talking, do they know what they are talking about? It's also connected to accuracy, to the informativeness of the stories, to the extent we can trust them. It also connected to the growing complexity and hyper specialization of the world around us that requires more expertise. It's also connected to evolution of knowledge and the question whether journalists are staying enough years or whether the clock of expertise ticks in the same pace like the clock of your time on the beat, or sometimes you have to leave the beat before you gain the expertise, and therefore journalism must join other occupation who are today busy with question how can we accelerate the expertise of our journalists. Final slide, I tried to summarize. No, I tried to summarize the joys and the agonies of developing new methodologies. Well, the joys are obvious. It's a creative process. It's fun. It's interesting. It makes your work more influential. Sometimes, so far, I got for the reconstruction interview. I got some prizes. I was invited to guide PhD students. Invitation to write papers, to write book chapters, to give talks. It was really fun. And also, it is fun to follow the diffusion and the citations of your work. But as I told you when I opened my description about the sleepless night, you are lonely. At least during the first year, you are lonely, stuck with your methodologies. A lot of sleeplessness. You have the challenges not only of developing your methodology, but also you have to invent the ways in order to analyze the data. You also are learning not only the advantages, but also the limitations of your methods. Sometimes you have to go back from fancy new methods to traditional methods, like we are now planning to do, going back from the Delphi panels to regular interviews that turn out to be fantastic in order to study the desired expertise. And sometimes you have the ugly baby syndrome. Sometimes babies are ugly, and you have to wait and see that sometimes they are developing to be beautiful children and beautiful people, and so you have to be patience. When you see a young methodology, it looks weak and sometimes ugly and very vulnerable. They need replication, they need support, they need nurturing in order to become mature methods. So for those of you who are interested, the four methodologies are expected in this book on new methodologies in journalism, which is part of the Routledge Companion to Handbooks. The volume is edited by Michael Boyle and Adam Reiner, and it's expected in 2025. With that, thank you very much, and I expect your questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions, please use the microphones because that would be better for Zvi to hear the question, okay? Any questions or comments from your side? Got the first question?
Hello, my name is Dorota Piotrek. We have already a chance to meet at our university in Poznań. I have a question, and I have to admit that I hesitate to ask it because it seems to be very practical, maybe too practical. All methods you've described very interesting methods, and thank you very much for your presentation. Needs a cooperation of other people. So need to involve people in, checking your methods, in collect some outcomes. So I'm really very sorry for this very trivial question, but what are your methods of recruitment people? What is your method to ask people and to have people having this willingness to cooperate with you, not only once, but for some period of time? Sorry again for this very trivial question, but I think it seems to be very important for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you repeat your name, please?
Dorota.
I didn't catch the name.
Dorota.
My name is Dorota.
Okay. Thank you. General Bradley from the American Army said that smart generals talk about strategy, but smarter generals are talking about logistics. So I take logistics very, very seriously, and your question is a very important one, because if you don't know how to solve it, you don't have a study. You might have a very sophisticated methodology, but it's useless if you don't know how to access journalists. So I would say that the secret sauce of my studies, the ways in which I managed to recruit journalists, is being very pessimistic. You should start your study under the assumptions the journalists are not going to cooperate with you. And if this is the assumption, then try to build cooperation. How do we build cooperation? We are, first of all, so sometimes, I had a table of journalists that I want to study 6 months in advance. And the list was on the wall, and we were thinking, well, whom do I know who might know this journalist, and talk to him and convince him that they should participate in this study. So we prepared a very intricate list of middlemen or middlewomen. Sometimes they are PR people, sometimes colleagues, sometimes other journalists that we interviewed, and we asked them to call the journalist and tell him that this is an important study. It's very elegant, very neatly planned, and this way we have, I would say, very high percentages of agreement. And I think also it becomes easier, and someone asked an expert on languages, well, how did you learn 25 languages? And he said, after 6 it becomes easier.
Okay, thank you very much, and I hope that you allow me to follow your method.
Okay, good luck.
Any other questions or comments? Actually, I would like to ask one more question, very detailed one, if I may. You mentioned that once you use this new sorting method, you selected 25 more or less stories. So how would you select them? I mean, you said that they were the most recent, so they can still remember them. But imagine that you've got a journalist who is writing a lot, producing a lot. So are there any, let's say, criteria that we should or may follow to, select the ones that they can actually refer to? You've got any kind of, let's say, design, or is it depending on the journalist, on the beats that they are representing or covering? What would be the strategy here? How to select that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. What we are trying to do is a minimal intervention. So minimal, otherwise we are, but we are biasing the study. So, but I think that there are considerations, like, for example, if you are covering a reporter who covers, city issues and environment, and you are interested in environment, then you would select environment stories. So we are basically we are trying to remove only technical items. For example, for only on technical background. For example, short stories. Sometimes you have news in brief, a very short story, which might not involve real expertise. So we take it out. Or if you have duplications, sometimes you have, in different editions, so the same story appears more than one time. So we are try to avoid the duplications, and we try to take the most recent stories, so journalists have a fresh memory because we ask them about the particular experience in particular stories. So freshness is very important. If you have too many stories, what we did in my former study of when in the reconstruction interviews, what we did was using a randomizer. So we used the randomizer to pick the stories randomly, which gave the study a lot of rigor. If you must select, then try not to select arbitrarily, rather using a randomizer, so it gives a statistical power to the findings.
Okay, thank you. But today we were talking about conducting interviews with journalists and the fact that usually they provide you the self-description, like self-presentation, auto-promotion, it may say so, right? While
Yes.
we are much more interested in something that would be probably more like self-reporting. So it seems to me that at least some of those methods at least give us some kind of chance to get this, let's say, more self-reporting approach. But just out of the curiosity, have you ever experienced the situation where the journalist told you that I cannot share, or I just don't want to share why I did it, whether there were any pressure or anything? Do you got any cases like this that they actually, yes, I remember that story, but I will not tell you how I did it?
Look,
Just the question.
During 25 years of study, maybe in two stories, journalists told me about part of the sources I cannot talk about this source. So it's very rare that you have real sensitivity. This is, at least according to my experience, I saw no problems. But your question reminds me something important to emphasize. We use this method to study expertise and knowledge, but which are, I know that some people hear, epistemology, I call it the E word. They hear epistemology and so they are not with you. I mean, it looks like too sophisticated. This is not for me. No, but the same method can be used to study many other aspects. For example, you can use the news sorting to study decision making, kind of decision the journalists make in the process of news. You can study judgments. You can study evaluations. You can study whatever topic you want to connect to particular items. And when you want to disrupt the regular speeches, the automatic speeches the journalists give you, because if they do the ranking, you ask them to rank difficulty of decision or what, or then they are already outside the comfort zone. They have to explain the ranking, they have to explain their groupings, and this is where I think the real business start. Now they start talking, you can hear the real thoughts that they are producing while, seeing their items and talking. So I believe that it can be used for really many other uses. We developed these methods to study knowledge and expertise, but they can, everything that involves reflection, judgment, evaluation, decision making, can be studied via this method. And it gives you another advantage that is very important, especially if the interview time is limited. Do you remember the 5 rows of the stories? So, yeah, okay. So the reporter is ranking the stories in 5 rows. 5 is an arbitrary name. You can do 6, 4, whatever you like. So after the ranking, what is the most important information for you as an interviewer when they already finished the ranking? What do you think is the most important information for you?
Anyone? I'm asking the room.
The first one.
Any comment? No, I'm the Wow.
Exactly. No, exactly. The first line. So you know already how to allocate time. You know that most of the interesting stuff is in the top line, and you have to, in the time allocation, spend less time on the bottom rows and more time on the upper rows. So it's very useful in managing your time, in understanding where are the really challenging stories. And why the less challenging stories, why were they less challenging? So you understand an entire logic. You understand the entire logic in which the journalists are embedded.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? No, I don't see any. So thank you very much, Zvi, for your presentation. That's
Thank you.
We'll see you again in Poznan, and we can actually learn even more from your studies. So we appreciate that you spent that hour with us, and we are very sorry that you cannot join us for dinner right now. But once again, thank you very much for the presentation and that you shared with us.
Thank you very much, and have a fruitful seminar.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.